So, welcome to the August 17th meeting of the Merrimack Parks and Recreation Committee. Thank you. Sorry about that. Welcome to the August 17th Parks and Recreation Committee meeting. I'm Chris Christensen, Chairman, and we're not doing that anymore. I'll take the badge off. Start on this side and just go around the table and introduce each other if we could.
Laura Janes, co-chair at this point.
Maureen, Senior Representative.
Christine Vloy, member.
Michelle Cushman, member and secretary.
Dan Dwyer, Town Council Rep.
Michael Thompson, School Board member.
Matt Kasparius, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Thank you all. We're going to shuffle this around a little bit. I think the first thing that's on everybody's mind is Wasserman Park and the swimming arrangements or the parking arrangements or what have you. And if citizens want to speak, then we'll allow that. But I think I'm going to start with the police department because I never know when they're going to rush out the door and something unanticipated. So you can come up and use the microphone right there next to Michelle.
Thank you, and good evening, and certainly thanks for giving me an opportunity to come and meet with you this evening to chat a little bit about what our collective response has been over the last few years at not only just Wasserman Park, but all of the parks. So again, I just want to thank all of you for having an opportunity to come together.
And we're honored to have Chief Doyle here.
Yeah. And yes, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Mark Doyle, I'm the police chief. Matt and I have had lengthy discussion, I think probably for the better part of the last 2 years anyways, about what our response needs to be moving forward, understanding the residential restrictions that are in place in some portions of the park and the non-resident availabilities which are in place in other portions of the park. And of course that promotes its own set of challenges. And I'm not really going to discuss exactly what it is that brought us to that point or why we're there. However, I do want to make sure that folks know, contrary to what others may have heard, because as you can imagine, there's quite an extensive rumor mill that runs throughout the town, and when the rumor mill starts, it's very difficult to try to reel it back in. Now, having said that, there's been a lot of discussion with my staff at the police department, not just recently, but since that residential restriction went in back in 2008, and what it was that we were going to do to make sure that the residency restriction that was in place was appropriately monitored to make sure that the folks that go down there, whether they're residents or non-residents, understand what the rules are requiring them to park in specific locations and have access to certain portions of the park. So we talked a lot about the communications piece. We talked a lot about signage. We met with the then Parks and Rec Director, Sherry Kalish, relative to what needed to be done. And we've since continued that conversation with Matt and his team over at the Parks and Rec Department. And having said that, it seems to be that in the last couple of years there's been a lot more attention drawn to what many perceive to be an inherent continued problem down there regarding people who are non-residents coming in and...
Sorry, Chief. Make sure, emphasize the word perceived problem. Because I'm kind of here to give another side that this issue that exploded in the newspaper is what exactly it's a perceived problem down at the water, because there isn't a problem.
And I'll just use, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to say perceived because there's two parts to that. And I want to make it very clear that regardless of what the nature of the complaint is, the Merrimack Police Department respond to every single service call that we receive. Every single one. If we get a call that there's a problem down at Wasserman Park, notwithstanding what it is, whether it's somebody parking in the wrong location, whether there's somebody littering or otherwise, we send a police officer to that call. Depending upon the nature of the emergency that we might be dealing with at the time, it may be a half hour later or an hour later, nonetheless we go. What some people may have heard is that we're not responding to those calls. We create and document in explicit detail reports on every single call for service that we make. Given the examples that we heard about this past weekend, on those occasions where we heard about damage being done, docks being destroyed, buoys being moved around, fires being lit, people drinking alcohol, smoking, acting inappropriately and whatnot. I think we went down there no less than 6 times over the course of the weekend for those calls for service. and found very little happening. What we did find were that somebody had moved some of the docks together in the dock area and made some kind of raft so they could jump off the dock and whatnot. There was some confusion about the folks that had rented an area, the picnic area, and whether they were able to be there because of that residential restriction. And then we cleared that up with the folks who had rented it after speaking with Matt and his folks about that. There was no damage. There was no alcohol that we found. There was no smoking that we had found. The kids that were down there that were causing all kinds of inappropriate or engaging in inappropriate activities were having a water balloon fight, and when we went down there, the folks from the church group that had rented the facility were actually in the process of picking up the water balloons that had been tossed around. As a matter of fact, we actually took an opportunity to meet with a lot of the folks that were down there, our officers, and had some of the kids climb through our police cars, and they had some pictures taken with the police officers that had responded. And our officers said that in both of those cases, on Saturday and on Sunday, when those two groups were down there, the groups were very respectful. They were acting appropriately. They weren't disrespectful in any way, shape, or form to either the officers or the other persons who were, I would say, for lack of a better term, patronizing the opportunity to visit the beach and the park. In those occasions, and that's not unlike the circumstances that we've had in the past. We've heard stories about problems down at the park. We've responded in kind and found nothing to even match a fraction of the degree to which it had been reported. However, we will continue to respond. We're not going to do the old boy who cried wolf and not go. We are going to continue to respond because we understand that people still need to have faith in their governmental response, either through the police department or otherwise, to make sure that they understand when somebody calls and they need help, we're going to be there. We'll assess what the nature and extent of the problem is, and we'll address it accordingly. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what our response has been regarding some of those perceptions. I can tell you, and I've already shared some of this information with Matt, that over the last 2 years, since 2015, between, and it only came up because the question was posed to me about Wasserman Park and about Watson Park, whether the police department have any authority, whether they know they have any authority to enforce town ordinances. How often have they done that? And there's been a request that provides some data. Well, I've got a lot of data. In those two parks alone, we have responded to over 80 separate calls for service over the last year and a half, year to date. Now, those calls for services are calls including ambulance assist, fire assist. They could be suspicious persons. They could be people that have been reported in the park drinking alcohol and the like. What you don't know is the 800 individual times that our patrol officers have responded to those parks on their own through self-initiated directed patrols. And each one of those 800 times, a report was cut to document that they went into those parks. Now, I didn't do the math to figure out exactly how many times it averages out to per day, but it's, I would suggest to you that between those two parks, they've got the lion's share of coverage for our response in terms of paying attention to what's happening in those two parks. Now, mind you, that our officers are also responsible for monitoring and patrolling all of the parks in town, which include Kids Cove, Horse Hill, Greater Woods, Twin Bridge Park, both Wasserman and Watson Parks, the OHRV and ATV Park, the Vets Park, Wildcat Falls, the conservation area off of Wildcat Falls, the Griffin Street Boat Ramp, the Depot Street Boat Ramp, the Martell and Twardowski baseball and softball fields, Weston Park, and of course Abbey Griffin Park. So you can imagine our resources are stretched pretty thin, so we try to do the best that we can to make sure that we prioritize what the issues are. And most of the time we prioritize what the issues are predicated upon our experience in those areas and what the people perceive to be a problem, because we understand that perception's reality. But we want to make sure that when we're called upon to try to tell and explain in explicit detail what it is we're doing, we have the numbers to back it up. Then one of the other questions that was asked of us is, have any violations or tickets been issued at Watson Park or Wasserman Park in 2015? And how often does the police department patrol the area? And do we go to the camp when it's in session? I think I answered part of that anyways. We've been in there quite a bit. 800 times over the last 2 years is pretty extensive. And we do try to participate in some of the events that the folks at Parks and Rec put on. And I know our officers and our K-9 goes down there periodically during the summer. And we always try to touch base with the Girl Scouts and the Scouts that go down there and participate in the overnight activities sometimes that they have as well. And we're very active in this regard, and we're proud that we're active in this regard. But to give you an idea, in 2015, we responded in Wasserman Park alone, in addition to the 310 self-initiated directed patrols that we actually engaged in, where we patrolled through or walked through down at the beach, without regard for being there because we were called to be there, we responded to an additional 29 calls for service. Of those, 3 people were issued warnings for trespass because they were there after hours. We responded to 2 ambulance assists, 4 alarms, 1 criminal mischief complaint, that was 1, 2 vehicle lockouts, and 2 reports of persons in the lot drinking after hours, which was unfounded because nobody was there when we got there. The remainder of the calls for service were minor police information calls and vehicle stops on Natticook Road or in the parking lot itself. In 2016, year to date, we've conducted 186 of those self-initiated directed patrols. And we also responded to an additional 37 calls for service. There were 7 persons who were issued warnings for trespass because they were there after hours. We responded to 9 alarms, 1 suspicious vehicle complaint, 3 criminal mischief complaints. We found and took 3 people into protective custody because they were in underage possession of alcohol after hours. We responded to 2 complaints of alcohol use that were determined to be unfounded, 2 reports of persons acting disorderly because they had moved the docks and there was an argument between 2 other folks that were unrelated, 1 complaint of a non-residential use of the park, which was unfounded, 1 complaint of non-residential use of the parking area, which was unfounded. We issued 1 summons and 2 warnings for non-residential parking violations, people that were non-residents that parked in the residential parking area. We conducted 2 field interviews, responded to 2 reports of persons in the lot drinking alcohol after hours, which was unfounded, and encountered 3 instances of men using the basketball court after hours with alcohol when they shouldn't have been. The remainder were minor police information calls as well. Now, in 2015, down at Watson Park, now remember, down at Watson Park, there isn't that same residency kind of over here's for residents, over here's for non-residents. It's open to everybody. We responded to an additional 13 calls for service in addition to the 122 directed patrols that our officers just did as a matter of course of their routine patrol duties. Of those, responded to 1 call for a motor vehicle lockout, 1 theft of a cell phone, a reported suspicious activity which was unfounded, a drug use on the property call which was unfounded. We couldn't locate anybody at that time. 1 for a suspicious vehicle. We conducted 3 field interviews and issued 5 trespass warnings for people in the park after hours. The remainder, again, were minor motor vehicle infractions and service calls. In 2016 year-to-date, we conducted, year-to-date again, 64 of those self-initiated directed patrols. Those are patrols, again, that our officers conduct during the course of their routine, regular patrol function, that they aren't called to that particular area to handle any particular service call. We checked on 1 elderly individual for a welfare check, found 2 property found calls. We found 2 cell phones. There were 2 warnings that were issued for people being in the park after hours. We assisted the fire department on 4 occasions with illegal burn investigations, and we assisted the fire department and EMS with 2 ambulance assists, and there were also 2 OHRV complaints. One of the things that comes up, and I think this is where it might get a little frustrating too. Well, let me just back up. As you can see by the data I provided, we do engage in fairly extensive enforcement activity. We find violations there on any of the parks or within any of the parks for the litany of park rules that people may violate, that are town ordinance based, meaning that it becomes our responsibility as police department to make sure that they're enforced. Now, having said that, it's important for folks to know what it is that we can and can't do. And this may be the source of a little bit of frustration. Because when we get a call at the police department, and I'll use this weekend as an example, when we get a call at the police department that there are non-residents down there on the beach, whether they're destroying the property, drinking alcohol, or they're just there and they shouldn't be there, it becomes a challenge for us to identify who these folks are. And I'll tell you why it's a challenge. Because unlike the private citizen, police just can't go down to the beach and ask somebody for their identification. And we certainly can't do it based upon what they've told the dispatcher is that they don't look like they're from Merrimack. And we all may laugh and chuckle, but this is exactly what my dispatchers have told me. When they query, because they need to query the persons on the other end of the phone to find out what it is that they have for a complaint and provide that information as much as they can to the officers that are responding. And the answer that they get is, well, they just don't look like they're from Merrimack, or they're speaking a different language. Now, I can imagine, or you can imagine, what kind of position that puts my officers in if they have to go down to the beach and start questioning people about where they're from, based upon how they look. And that's a horrible thing for anybody to be put in a position for, and I'm certainly not going to make our officers do that. Number one, I'm not going to do it because it's not the right thing to do. And number two, the Supreme Court has already said that we cannot.
And Chief, tell everybody that the town council and nobody else in town has asked you as well.
Absolutely not.
It has not been the policy of any local government to cross any line, that even walking up to that line.
Never even has been suggested.
Thank you.
Ever. But I need to let people know that
course.
there are certain restrictions that law enforcement officers have, and we're bound by. The last thing this town wants, or the police department wants, is to be on the wrong end of a civil rights violation lawsuit. And these are the kinds of things that can open the door. Now, that's not to say that people shouldn't call, or that maybe we need to do something else in terms of trying to communicate what the rules of the park are, to let folks know where they can park, when they can be down there, those kinds of things. Because we want to make sure that everybody that goes to the park, whether they're residents or non-residents, feel that they are doing so in a safe manner, and they can certainly enjoy the facilities that are available to them. But that's one of the challenges. That's the largest challenge that our officers face when they go down to try to determine who is it that's down there legally. Now, that's not to say what we have been doing, and I think I spoke to Matt a little bit about this, since 2008, when our officers go down to the park and they drive through and they do their director patrol, they always check in to make sure that the people that are parked in the residential parking area have the dump sticker or they have the placard. If they don't, they run a motor vehicle listing, which they're within their authority to do so. If that listing comes back as somebody out of town or out of state, determined to be a non-resident, they're issued a motor vehicle warning or a motor vehicle citation for parking contrary to the town ordinance that restricts parking to residents only. We have the documentation. We've done that. We have the data that shows that we're doing that now, and we will continue to do that. But for us to do anything further than that becomes murky. We're not going to go down to the beach. We can't go down to the beach and start asking people who it is that owns the white van to go ahead and move it. It becomes a real problem for us because, again, if we're predicating it upon whom we think with no reason to suspect, because the law is very clear, RSA 594-2 clearly states that we have to have reason to suspect somebody's committing, has committed, or is about to commit a crime in order to, quote-unquote, stop and detain them and request of them their ID. It becomes a real challenge for us. So you can imagine what kind of position we're in. We're still here to do whatever it is that we need to do so that the folks at Parks and Rec can make sure that they're providing a wonderful facility for the folks in town and for visitors who come in from out of town. And we're going to work very closely with the folks in Park and Rec to make sure that we're continuing to do all that we can do. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that the police department is working very hard, as is the Parks and Rec department, to make sure that this system works, until which time we determine that it's not and we have to move forward and do something different. And again, that's a decision that we're all going to have to come to and decide on what it is that we want to do with Wasserman Park or with Watson Park or with any of the parks for that matter. The police department's working diligently, and I think you need to know that, very diligently, to make sure that we're trying to safeguard the jewel that it really is. And Wasserman Park, I think we'll all agree, is a jewel, and we want to make sure it stays that way. That's why we've been in there over 800 times over the last year and a half, to make sure that it is and it stays that way.
Mark, would it help if we could get an attendant down there, like on weekends and something? I know we don't have the money, but it just seemed, I pressed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Matt might want to chat a little bit about that.
Okay.
Some discussion within
Okay,
ourselves first.
all right.
We'll hear
Well,
from
you know, it
Chief
comes in my head, I don't want to lose it.
and Dan from the citizens as well.
But I'm available for any questions you might have or comments or anything at all at this point in time. I hope I've been helpful. And if moving forward, Matt, you seem to think, or the chairman seems to think that we can help with any other information that you might need, we can certainly do the data dive at the station and get some more numbers for you if it looks like it's going to help you with whatever it is you decide to move forward on.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief. I will add to that just a minute, the chairman of the town council and I were down there Sunday afternoon. Matt was over there on Saturday, and I think everything you've said is exactly what we found. I didn't count 800 stops, but other than that, things were pretty calm, pretty quiet. I was surprised how quiet it was in terms of the number of people. So I appreciate your thoughts, and we had an extended conversation with one of your officers Officer Vanderside, actually, who was a big help in helping us understand some of the things you've mentioned about what a police officer can and cannot do. I would add that it is probably not a good idea if you're a citizen and you call the police, that's fine, but I don't think, and maybe you'll back me up, that it's a good idea to confront somebody that you think is abusing the privileges. If you're there and you say, "Hi, how are you?" And you're cordial that you might be to any stranger, that's fine. But confronting somebody who's, in your opinion, doing something wrong is probably not a good idea.
Yeah, I would agree. There's no good that can come out of that. If there's a reason that you feel that somebody needs to be spoken with or spoken to about their behavior or about anything, whether you feel that they're violating the park rules, you make sure you reach out to the police department. That's why we're there. Don't wait. Don't say, "I want to wait until it gets a little worse," or "I should just maybe not do anything about it," because if you're that concerned, then we're that concerned. So give us a call.
Okay.
Thank you for coming tonight and clarifying that side, because it isn't always clear with different perspectives and things like that. And to see it or hear about it in social media so quickly is kind of confounding for this older person. But I'm just saying it's nice that we can have these discussions here. Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Thank you.
Town council rep, did you want to say something first, or can I go to people from the public?
I got all kinds of things to say, but anybody else,
Okay, some people from the public had questions or wanted to comment or something. Maybe you can borrow the mic from Christine.
Hi, I'm Tom. I reside in Merrimack.
Can you give us a name and address?
Thomas Price, 4 Pilgrim Ave.
Thanks, Tom.
One of the questions is if someone was driving down there and you had alcohol on you, I mean, that's a long ride down. I mean, someone just cover that right up. I've been going down there for the past 3 weeks to a month, and some of the things I've seen down there was, I mean, the first time I went down there, people were carrying cases of alcohol out of there, right out of there. I've seen litter with bottles. I've seen drug baggies. I've counted beer bottle caps. The same time you were down there, we got pictures of kids tying the docks up, the rafts to the docks, about 1 foot apart, jumping off. And I swear, every time one kid jumped, I cringed. I was like, finally an off-duty cop went out there and put the docks back. There's swearing, there's no parental control down there. And I'm with him. It's not non-resident residents that I'm worried about who's doing it. It's what they're doing. The beach is being misused from what I've seen. I don't even think it's a question. Sometimes it is nice and day. I met nice people down there, I think the rules need to stick. They need to be more elaborate. Some of the ideas I had would be to actually sell beach tags, not IDs, and something on a rearview mirror that you put in the parking lot that says, "I can park here." Wide out in the open. Don't have to look at plates, don't have to run numbers. It says, you have the right to park here. Use that money you sell. You sell the tags and to put up signs for each parking lot. That you will either be towed or fined $100 if you park there. That would give you reason, I think, to go down the beach and check for tags. And you say, "Hey, I'm not going to tow your car, but you're breaking the rules." I think when you get your beach tags, you get a piece of paper with the rules, and you sign to them. You break those rules, you can lose your privilege to use the beach. Simple as that.
Chris, I can answer your comment with, it was talked about, and the local government decided that this was an honor system. And an honor system comes with the pratfalls of having someone that may be out of town that's there.
It's not the out-of-towners. It's the abuse. It's the abuse of the place, whether you're from out of town or in town.
Okay. I'm not here to debate you.
I'm not debating, sir.
I'm just saying, under an honor system, people will come and go, and if there's a criminal activity going on, calls are made, and they address it. I'm sorry that you've had a bad experience with everything that you listed, but I go there a lot myself, and I haven't seen any of that. I'm sure what you've seen is real. When you saw it, it was happening. but every day, attendants are there, cleaning up at night, they're there first thing in the morning. I don't perceive this as a problem. This started out as a social media event on that deplorable, despicable Merrimack Forum, full of anonymous people causing nothing but it's just a hate group to me.
Yep.
The Merrimack Forum is a cancerous debate group. They're listening,
We're getting
talking
off
to
topic
themselves.
here.
Oh no, it's part of the topic. Merrimack Forum is what started this ball rolling on the social media. So it's
What
very
started
much
with
alive.
me was the disrespect of that beach.
Well, the disrespect is coming from people in the social media taking a
No, it's
nothing-
coming from people
All
in
right.
their district. I'm not
entitled to
gonna.
I'm
I know.
entitled to my opinion, and I've been living here for 21 years, and I've been going to that park a lot, and there is no problem at Wasserman Park or the beach.
Well, someday I'll be saying I told you so.
All right.
Okay. Anything else, Tom, you want to add at
That's
the end?
it. That's it for me.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else wish to speak?
I do.
Please come up. Make sure the green light's on the microphone and
It is? Okay.
give us your name and address.
My name is Megan Gaudet. I live at 4 Pilgrim Ave, Merrimack, New Hampshire. I haven't really been down for most of the summer down at Wasserman's Park. I've been actually going down there since July 31st. That was my first day down there this summer. I went down there with my fiance. We were going to go fishing, and as upon arrival into the parking lot, I was met by Officer Sullivan, who was doing a patrol down there with another officer. I did not get his name. That was at 10 o'clock in the morning. Upon arrival, we were speaking to the officer because the parking lot was trashed. There was Wendy's cups, French fries boxes all over the ground, receipts, energy drinks on the ground, a juice box. That was in the driveway. And in the grass next to it, there was beer bottles, what looked to be a tiny little drug bag. We just spoke with the officers on how we felt this shouldn't be happening. Why is this mess down here? And Officer Sullivan took 2 receipts, one from Amherst and one from Tingsboro, Mass., and he took it in his patrol car. He said, I forget what he said he was going to do with it, but he was going to go back and talk to somebody else about what was going down there. So further upon, me and my husband walked down onto the beach. We found beer bottle caps. I found 5 pair of goggles, a popped balloon ball, the grill full of charcoal, chicken. There was trash on the actual beach dock. There was water bottles, etc. And I was very mad that somebody left the beach like that. And I was mad because camp was on a Monday. Now, somebody had to come in and clean all that up before the campers got there. And we're wasting more resources to have somebody come in early on a Monday morning to have to clean that up. And I took pictures to back up of what I've told you, and I did post them on the Merrimack Forum, and a lot of people were outraged by the state of the beach. Also, we were down there on Sunday, and like what my fiance did say, the kids did pull the docks together, and I was like, somebody's going to get hurt, and then if somebody gets hurt, they could sue the town, and then the beach will be closed because we would have to pay out that money to them. And there was an off-duty Nashville police officer who did pull the docks back and told the kids that was not safe, you know, we can't do that. And I do like the whole idea, but you said that the government said we can't do the place cards and such and such. Is there a way that just to make it residents only for Wasserman's Park so we know that it's just town people that are doing that?
That would never happen.
Never happen.
The park is a park. It's open to the whole community. It's open to everybody. The only restriction we have is the beach for residents.
Okay.
The park itself will always be open to the public. It would
Now-
never be considered for private under any circumstances.
I did take pictures of the signage. There is numerous signs down there that states the beach is for residents only. There's states when you go down that long driveway right there, there's an alcohol sign stating per town ordinance you cannot drink on the beach, and underneath it per residents only. You go down, there's another sign on that beach that says for residents only, and then there's rules on another placard that's down at the beach. The driveway down there says per residents only for parking. I don't understand.
You don't understand, and I say this with all due respect. People are rude and obnoxious. It's just a fact of life in our society today. And you have to live with the good and the bad. And so I can't see anybody putting restrictions or doing any more than we can that we've done for that park. Our departments work awfully hard. You caught it on a really bad day. I don't doubt at all everything the testimony that you gave is true.
I have pictures. And
Of course. But that's not how the park looks every day, or even more than any 8 hours would have gone by where that would have been picked up. So you had a snapshot in time of a really bad day. And unfortunately, it blew up into this whole look at the problem we have at Wasserman Park. So if I sound like I'm getting defensive, I don't apologize. Because that was a snapshot in time.
I do feel we were down there on Sunday. Most of the trash was picked up from previous visitors, but there was still some looming trash of water bottles near the park that could be, i.e. from camp, people visiting because it was on a Sunday. But I feel that that park does need to be cleaned up. There's blue foam in the water from, I don't know if it was the docks or it could be from a float. And I do feel that if it's a volunteer basis, that park doesn't need to be, the beach does need to be cleaned up. There's overgrowth in the Little Beach area. I think it would be beneficial for.
Then can I give you some friendly advice? Come budget season, come with a couple dozen of your friends and neighbors and ask us as a committee that you want to see more money spent on attendance, whatever you'd like. But to be honest, all these subjects have been debated and judged and then put in a budget, which we give to Park and Rec, and we've done everything we can. So if you'd like to see more, then the public has to voice their opinions to the whole council and spend, if you guys want to see a change. So we're constantly begging for people to join this committee, Conservation Committee, the Planning Board, the Zoning Board, and every Thursday night we talk to a room full of empty seats, month after month after month. So if people want to get involved in their committee, like every person at this table tonight, people have been involved in this. Chris has been involved in Merrimack for 30 years. There's always a place at a table for people to volunteer their time and their efforts and their ideas. And the Park and Rec Committee is one of the best committees in town to implement things that you can really see on a daily basis. But I'll defend the Highway Department and the Park and Rec Committee for what they do at Wasserman Park. It's unfortunate that it had a bad snapshot, and
It was just my first time going down there that season.
And that's really sad. It's too
I
bad
was
that you-
shocked, and I was mad going
I get
down
it.
there that somebody would leave the beach
But it happens
like that.
at Watson. It happens at Watson Park across from the fire
I
station.
personally don't
you know?
go to Watson Park. That's just my personal choice. But
I mean, you're talking to a guy that walks around with a baggage in his trunk to pick up trash at parks.
yeah,
You know, Merrimack Rocks, I'm out there, midnight picking up trash. I'm there Sunday morning picking stuff up too. I mean, people who have softball tournaments, they leave the trash. But you know what? Some of the guys with their uniforms on, they're there. They get to their trunk, they pull out the bag, they self-clean. So it does happen. You hit it on a really bad day.
it was a really bad day. I was just going to say.
Okay. We're going to let, just got to finish up first.
I was just going to tell you, come down McElwain Street when the kids are in school. You want to see trash. And they're walking down the street and they just fling a bottle on my front lawn. And I just go out and pick it up. And there's nothing I can do because the parents aren't telling them, let's clean this place up. I would really love high school to go
That's why I
out
said a
and take a bag and give all those kids a bag and go down O'Gara and pick up all the trash.
A volunteer type of thing. People can sign up on a Saturday or Sunday, go down there and clean it up. I'm not telling the town to spend the money, but I'm just saying why as a community people voice their opinion on the form. Why not show it? Obviously, I thought there was going to be more people here because people were talking about it.
So did we.
And they wanted to have a solution, but as you can tell, only 3 people showed up, you know?
Amy, we appreciate you being here. We really do. Yeah.
When he
It's,
calls that place a jewel, I really believe it.
it is. It is a hidden jewel. Honest,
I didn't take it that way at all.
I've only been living here for 8 years, and honestly, I didn't know about it until, I would say, about maybe 2.5 years ago. I had no idea that it ever even existed. And when I stumbled upon it, I was like, oh my God, this is wonderful. I'm like, the kids can come swimming down here, we can go hiking, and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just saying, I'm not asking you guys to spend money. I'm saying if the town wants it to be cleaned up, we should volunteer because
But the volunteer system only goes so far, and there has to be the backstop. And the backstop is the
Yeah.
town employees. That can't be helped. That's just the way it has to go.
Okay. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else, Maureen?
I just wanted to kind of emphasize that we are a community, and within the community, we have people that are good, we have people that are bad, we have people that are great. I know for myself, I live on Joppa Road. You want to see trash? I pick up bags a year in my front yard, and I actually walk my neighbor's yard. I walk all the way down to the condos. And I think I have to ask, that day that you saw all that trash, did you pick up any of it?
I did not. I didn't have any.
There's trash cans.
First off,
So-
I didn't want to touch
so no-
anything with
the-
no gloves.
Yes.
Because
So,
I
but-
don't know
Okay,
what was
so-
on it, and I did not feel comfortable because
But that's just then. The thing is, again, we're a community. So, again, we take care of the community. The good ones will take care of it, make it the best it can. Merrimack has a lot of good people, and that's what makes it great. So I just have to emphasize, you talk about volunteers, feel free to volunteer, go get some gloves and go pick it up.
okay.
So, I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, and it's wrong, but there's only so much we can do with the resources we have, unfortunately. So,
Which is
but
understandable.
thank you.
Chris.
Matt?
Okay, I want to touch on a couple of things that have been said. And I've got it on my list for Community Cleanup Day, right at the park already. It's right there. Another Saturday to work, but that's okay. Right. And again, I was here twice actually on Sunday because I got called about Saturday by the police department, as they typically do when there's off-hours calls. So I came down first thing Sunday, and it was basically spotless. You know, the group in question had cleaned up everything. You know, the barrels weren't overflowing. You know, whatever. And then I got another call that the chief sent me a message saying, "Oh, we got 3 more calls today." So I came back Sunday night, and again, I'm like, okay. It looks okay, but whatever. So, and I'm here usually at least once every weekend. Now I'm a salaried employee, and I average somewhere between 60 and 70 hours a week as a salaried employee. See, I'll remember that at budget time, Dan. At any rate, now one of the challenges we have is staffing. I'm the only full-time employee for the department. I have a part-time administrative assistant, and then a bunch of seasonal camp counselors and those types of things. Going back, I don't know the exact dates of history. Going back, I think it was 2010 was the last time we had staffing on weekends up there. At the time when the economy tanked, they cut the funding for lifeguards. When I got, and now I've only been here for 2.5 years, and when I got here that first year in 2014, I said we need to put these back. So at least I have people here that can keep an eye on things and deal with trash and whatnot. And that money got put in last year. Now, one of the challenges we face is there is a lifeguard shortage in New England. Last year, at the time, at this point, the town was paying $8 an hour for lifeguards. Most everybody else around us was paying, $9.50, $10. So we couldn't find anybody willing to take the job and give up their Saturdays and Sundays. This year we managed to go up a little bit in our budget to $8.50. And the lifeguard shortage got worse, and now, like, for example, Manchester is paying $12 an hour for lifeguards, and Hampton Beach is paying $14, and both of them still struggled to get guards this summer. So one of my budget priorities when we get to the budget this fall is a fairly sizable increase so that I can actually get lifeguards to take the job. Now, with that said, most positions went unfilled this summer, so we had nobody here on weekends, other than me when I'm working, when I really shouldn't be working. But with that said, the camps end this week on Friday, which means it goes back to being very quiet at the park for the most part. But I've convinced one of my staff to stay on, and they're going to work weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, for at least through Labor Day, potentially into September, depending on what the weather's like. If it's still 85 degrees every weekend, then we'll keep them longer. If it starts getting to like 60 in the day, then we'll stop. But at least for the next few weekends, their job will be basically to monitor the park, and particularly the waterfront. The police department has issued us one of their radios, so that if there is a direct problem, people drinking or whatever, that my employee will be able to call them directly, with, specifics, so we have, all the relevant details and can get maybe a faster response if a faster response isn't required. That employee, after, talking with the chief, that employee will not be checking IDs. Obviously, it's going to be mostly picking up trash in the park and visible presence to deal with, people, things from getting out of hand, making sure people are picking up after themselves, that sort of thing. And like I said, we'll do that for the next couple of weekends until we get into September, and then we'll see how things go. And then we'll kind of revisit that, because to do it for next year, if I still can't get lifeguards next year, then park attendant might be the way to go. But I'm going to have to address that issue in the budget next year. Yes?
If you need a volunteer, let me know.
Okay, you're hired. Let's see. I think that the chief kind of stole most of my thunder, which is okay. There was a question that came up, I know, in the forum about how many reservations. Now, we don't get a lot of reservations for that picnic area. The Zyla picnic area is those 5 tables and 4 grills that are directly above the basketball court. In 2015, we had a grand total of 6 of them. 2 were residents, 4 were non-residents, generating a grand total of $750 for the town. This year, we've had a grand total of 3 of them. One this past weekend, which was a non-resident group, and 2 residents. So again, grand total of $375. Now, if you look at that picnic area, it's getting kind of run down because I don't have any resources. I don't have year-round maintenance help. It's one of my ongoing projects. I've been hoping to get a scout to do it, and that hasn't come through yet. But we're actually probably going to stop renting that out anyway for the short term until we solve some of these other, issues.
I do have a quick question about
Yes.
that. I did read through the website.
Yes.
For Parks and Recs, and it says that you're not supposed to. Oh, sorry. It says that you're not supposed to rent them out to non-residents. Has that changed since though it was on the website? Because it is sort of deceiving if they do rent out that are non-residents. They think that they can use the beach.
There's gray area there.
Okay.
If you look at the ordinance itself, it just says the waterfront is for residents only, but it doesn't define what constitutes the waterfront.
Okay.
And the groups that we have, so for example, the group that was there this past weekend, they've been there every year for 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, you're back again, and we've never had issues with any of those groups. So it was kind of like.
I was under the impression that renters had access to the park. So if you rented,
Right.
you could go to the beach. That at least was my understanding. If it needs to be cleaned up language-wise, we probably should do it. But I think the intent was when you rent the facility, then you're welcome everywhere at the facility.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, that's one of the things we have to clarify. The other one is actually with the addition of that new waterfront parking lot, the ordinance doesn't currently address that parking lot.
The non-res.
The
resident
bottom of the hill
post-
one
Yes.
is not currently in the town ordinance. We have to rewrite that section anyway to include that. And I don't know if the council ever actually voted that it would be residents at a meeting or not.
And that's the thing. If you have to understand that the parking lot was a brain idea 5 years ago. So it's been a while coming. So once the parking lot came, somewhat like Watson Park, we never knew that was going to be a swimming hole. You
Okay.
know, that the park kind of evolved year after year into what it's going to become, and the same could be said about Wasserman Park now that that parking lot was created and the road down there. So it's all kind of new to the whole town as well. So there's a bit of a learning curve going on at the same time.
Okay, yeah, I was just reading through their website before coming here, and that was one of the issues on there, how it said non-residents
Yep.
can rent out those picnic areas.
Right.
By
And the main building too is being rented as a function hall for the first time in
I
many
s-
years as well. So
I-
that's another newness with the park, creating another potential. Well, are the people who rented the hall? What's that?
Oh, the function hall.
The function hall. Can they go to the beach?
Okay.
My quick answer would be yes. I mean,
Okay.
you rented you rented that building. You rent the whole place.
Well, what I didn't know this weekend is if out-of-towners were renting those spots
Right.
and they were using the beach down there.
Sure.
And if they are allowed or not allowed, because on the website, it states that they're not allowed, so I
Yep.
just wanted clarification for that.
It's one of those issues
Yep.
that we have to fix.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I guess the bottom line is trying to maintain an openness to the park. That's what we're trying to do. With having such a busy camp for 3 months in Merrimack, we felt like at the time, this goes back to years when it was first about residents only, was because the residents have a hard time using it during the week. So it gave the residents a respite to have it for the weekend, knowing that it was just the residents anyway, but now the campers were gone. Because during the week, it's just kind of crowded because you got 100-something kids.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the thinking too, that Monday through Friday, the camp was going to be very busy anyway, and therefore the weekend, the residents could count on all the kids being gone.
Me personally, I don't mind who uses the beach, no matter if they're out of state, in state, out of town, as long as people take care of it. Because I live in town, I would like to be able to go there and have it to be clean and have my kids be able to use it. I've never made a call to the police down there. I've never done anything like that. I want it to be respected. That's the biggest concern. I don't care if it's somebody from Florida, Virginia, as long as, they're respecting it, so.
Thank you. Mike, you had something?
Yeah, I just had a question or a comment. I heard a rumor, and I'm going to emphasize this is a rumor, that there was an individual checking IDs from the public, and I just wanted Chief Doyle to emphasize if that's something that anybody should ever do. And this was not a police person, it was a public citizen checking.
Yeah,
ID.
it's, again, confrontation is one of those things that you just want to completely, there's no reason for it at all, there's no need for it at all. If there's ever a need that you determine where you felt compelled to somehow confront somebody relative to their identification, or you had an issue with what they were saying, take that step back and say, I'm going to call the police because that's their job to do it. There's no need for that, because my experience, and I can defer to my colleagues, will let you believe that when anybody ever does that, it goes bad really quick. And people can get hurt, people get offended, people get confrontational. There's no need for it at all. If you feel that somebody's doing something wrong or acting inappropriately, or they're non-residents and they shouldn't be there, notwithstanding what those decisions are now or where they may be a year from now, call us. That's what we're paid to do. We have no problem doing it. We will respond, and if it's an emergency, it goes right to the top of our priority list, and we take care of it ASAP.
Thank you. Did you have something else,
I
Matt?
did one last, you had mentioned about the grass overgrowth. We're working on that. We have an erosion problem, as you can imagine, with the steep hills.
Yes.
I was going to talk about this later in our meeting anyway, but I actually met with the new town engineer last week looking at it. There's a couple of things we might be able to do, but we have to get permits from the state and design plans and all that kind of good stuff. It's not an easy process. You can't just go in and dump more sand or, well, the problem with dumping in new
Not
sand.
legally.
Yeah, well, among the problems with it is that most of it tends to wash into the lake. So that first section of the H-dock, especially now, is about 2 inches deep. So we're looking at, possibly extending out the dock so that we get some water flow in that front section. Again, we want to address the roots and some of the other issues there, but that's going to probably take a couple of years. And again, I only have 2 summer college kids helping me Monday through Friday. I don't have anybody on weekends, so we do what we can. in terms of maintenance, but we're getting there. And the blue stuff too was probably a piece of the dock, the foam that holds up the dock.
It was foam, so I didn't know if it came from like a flotation device
Yeah.
or from
It was
the dock.
probably a piece of the dock. That was it.
Okay. I do have one thought. This last Sunday I was there, and I did the same thing a year ago. I went through where the dining hall used to be, the residents-only parking lot. And I've thought for a long time that residents, non-residents parking doesn't make much sense to me, because once you get out of the car, you go around the park and nobody knows where you parked or where you're allowed to go. It doesn't really restrict you from the beach. Or if you're a resident and you park in the other parking lot because you want to be there, it's closer, whatever. And the other thing is that the non-resident parking lot, and we'll get to this a little bit later, is the one that's adjacent to the dog park. So if that fills up with people using the dog park, then other people have. So that parking lot concept needs to be reviewed, as Matt mentioned, because of the ordinance for the lower parking lot as well. Nonetheless, when I went through Sunday, there was one car with a visible Merrimack dump sticker. There were 2 Massachusetts cars, but I believe it turns out later on we found out that those belonged to relatives of Merrimack residents, and they were coming as guests, or they shared the car or shared a ride. So that's a difficult thing to do. My thought was, if we have somebody there on weekends and they have a little piece of paper that they can put on the windshield that says, just a reminder, residents only parking lot, please get your dump sticker or whatever.
We have those already made up for our officers to issue, so if that's something that we can provide to you, and
I was going to mention that now that I'm glad you brought that up because I had forgotten about it. But the attendant that'll be there on weekends, and she'll be there 11 to 6, figuring that'd be kind of prime time. But the police department has given us some of those reminder notices that she could, if she sees, a Massachusetts plate, she could certainly stick on their windshield to remind them.
Yeah, I don't want to have police officers down there giving out tickets all day long. But I think the gentle reminder approach is worthwhile. I will say, was it Maureen? Somebody mentioned wrist tags. Not you? Okay, somebody did. I've seen those at other public beaches. A little tag with an elastic wristband, or a tag that with a safety pin you put on your shirt or your swimsuit or whatever. And it seems to be more successful in my mind than parking, because once you're on the beach, you got the tag, you can see. Now, do we want to identify people and have non-tags upsetting other people and creating confrontations? Probably not. And I think that's where the town council came from when they talked about an honor system. So I think there's been some discussion around these things. I've seen the tag system work in other towns, but they've also had more staff and somebody there to hand out the tags the day of. If you can only get the tag at Matt's office and it's not open on Sunday, or town clerk's office and it's not open on Sunday, or the dump and it's not open on Sunday or Saturday, then that system breaks down pretty quickly. So I think we'll be having some general discussion about this probably in relation to our budget discussion, which will be next month. But if anybody else wants to weigh in with potential solutions that need investigation before we get any further with it, I'd like to have you say so, or give Matt a jingle sometime during the week, so that if we need to look stuff up or find out experience in other towns or what have you, then we've got time to do it before we come to our next meeting.
I do just have a quick question.
Sure. Would you come up to the mic, please?
You were speaking about the dump sticker. Now, I know some people don't use the dump in Merrimack. I personally don't use the dump in Merrimack, so I don't have a dump sticker. So how would we go about saying that you are from Merrimack?
Well, you get a dump sticker in the mail when you re-register, renew your registration for your car. But you can come down to
Now, the other
town
thing
clerk's office
is,
and get one.
we both live in Merrimack, but his car is registered to Nashua. That's the reason. Yeah,
There's a
well,
provision.
his ID.
They have a place card, because that's when the Massachusetts place, they could be company cars that people live in Merrimack, but they work in Mass and they want a company car.
Yes.
So it's not uncommon to
That's-
see a plate in the parking lot with Mass plates.
Yeah.
But if you go to Town Hall, they'll just give you they have not a decal, but a place card in substitution of the dump sticker.
Okay.
And you can get two of them and put them in each car. And
Okay.
We also have, it's a hang tag. You can get it
Yeah.
from the town clerk, or you can get it from my office, and you just basically show proof of residence, and it's just a thing that hangs on your mirror.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to. It doesn't matter. Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, just come see us in the office on weekdays, and
Okay.
we
And
can
if
get
you're
that.
working weekdays, send them a note.
Yeah.
I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my son is finishing up
Camp,
camp this
right.
week, so I can
Okay.
see you
My attendant
anytime.
this weekend will have some of those with her too.
So-
So yeah, my attendant that'll be there this weekend after 11
Okay,
will have
thank you.
some of those as well.
Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Closed.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you for the backup.
You guys did a great job.
Okay, we're going to take a 10-second break here while people leave if they want, and then we're going to go on to the rest of the agenda. Of June 15th. Do we have a motion? The motion to accept?
Motion to accept meeting minutes from last month.
Is there a second? Second from Maureen. Any changes, corrections, errors, and omissions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the minutes as distributed? Aye. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I'm abstaining.
6,
Not there.
5, 502.
Correct.
I don't count. No, I mean, I don't get counted in the number.
he's not a voting member.
I'm not a voting member.
Okay, and we're going to start off this time around with new business. And we talked about this just a little bit when we were in semi-recess, but we do have openings for 2 members,
2 fulls and 2 alternates.
two full members and 2 alternates. So, and anytime an alternate is here, they're going to be able to sit and participate. They just can't vote. But the way alternates work on other committees is if there's somebody absent, then they're sitting in for that person. And most of the time when you have 8 or 10 people on a committee, there's almost always somebody that can't make it for whatever reasons. So being an alternate doesn't mean you don't get to participate or anything else. It just means you're sitting in for this person, you're sitting in for that person, and you're still a full participant. So we would welcome that. Now, there was just a question a minute ago. How do you find out more about this? If you go to the town website and go to Parks and Recreation, go to the contact us page, and that'll set you up with an email. You can give us a sentence or two about your background and a sentence or two about why you'd like to be on Parks and Recreation, and we will get that information to the town council. They schedule an appointment for a brief interview. They make a recommendation. There's a smaller subcommittee. They make at the next meeting, make a recommendation to the town council for appointment, and then you need to be sworn in. And then you're a full-time member. So it's relatively straightforward, and we would welcome new members. And as we head back to school, there is no age restriction. If you're 16 or older, you can be a member of this committee. So,
Maybe. Yep, sounds
Okay.
good. That's it, yep.
Okay, next item is Abby Griffin Park, Merrimack Community Bandstand.
Okay, so Kyle Fox and I were having a discussion last week. Right now, anybody can make a reservation for the bandstand over here at Abby Griffin, and actually Watson Park Pavilion as well. There's no fee for it, and we don't get a ton of reservations, but we get some. And this past week we had a group that had, and there's, like I said, no fee. We had a group that had done a candlelight vigil for somebody, and then the next morning the DPW maintenance came in, and there was dried wax all over the bandstand that they had to then spend time cleaning. We don't charge a fee, so we can't technically, so it's not like we don't have a deposit right now that we can withhold. So the question, it really is, and this was the debate Kyle and I were having, was do we need to either A, charge a fee, and or B, maybe just to take a security deposit, not a rental fee, and then just hold it and then give it back, assuming everything's good. And so wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like I said, this is the first time it's come up in my time here. So it's probably not a huge issue, but since it just happened last week, we figured we'd discuss it.
I certainly agree. I think we should have some kind of deposit for that, just for those incidents. Maybe it will never happen again, but since it has, and now we have to take notice, and certainly maybe we need to look at making a blacklist. We know this group or persons did not take care of the facility in a thoughtful manner. Maybe we should make sure if they do request to rent anything else in town that we either make sure get a deposit,
and I do have
or
that ability.
Not allowed.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest a couple of things. First, just for historical purposes, September 22nd, next month. September 22nd, 1996 was the date we had the dedication ceremonies for the bandstand. It was the Merrimack Community Bandstand because the Merrimack community all pitched in. We raised something over $100,000 to build the bandstand, develop the park, so on and so forth. But because it was developed by or paid for by the community, the agreement was there would not be fees for any activities that go on down there. So that's why the concerts are free and so on and so forth. Now, having said that, I don't see any reason why you couldn't have a security deposit for people who use it for whatever function and give it back. At the same time, if I want to have a little function down there and I don't want to reserve it, it's an open park. I can go just down and use it.
Yep.
And I don't think we have an ordinance against candles. I'm going to guess if you're down there with candles, we used to do that with the Christmas Carol sing-along, although the candles weren't necessarily on the bandstand. Nonetheless, for a one-time kind of thing, I would not expect that the candle people realized they were dripping wax onto the floor, and whether you contacted them or not for cleanup, maybe a different kind of varnish or epoxy flooring needs to be resurfaced there. Anyway, I think we can work out if you want to do a cleaning deposit, security deposit, whatever title you want to use. And I guess my question is there sentiment in that direction, or do we just want to say, well, okay, once out of 20 years isn't a bad record? Mike, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you. No, I think you just made a valid point, is that it's a long period of time. It's one time, from what you know. I mean, if it becomes a constant thing, then maybe it should be reviewed. At first, I thought the security fee might be good, but based off of history, I don't think that we need to do a knee-jerk reaction based off of one. If it becomes problematic, then it might be beneficial to do it at the future.
It's a lot of paperwork.
Well, we don't have reservations for it that much. I don't know how many, we used to have a lot of weddings. I say a lot, half a dozen a summer. I don't know how many we have now.
We get a fair number.
on our website.
Dan?
To chime in, I'm in agreement. I just don't think it would be a knee-jerk reaction at this point. The long history has shown that it hasn't been needed. And we're talking about it because it just happened.
Right.
So I understand that part. And I understand the whole security deposit. It's a good idea, but more about the history, that it doesn't seem to be warranted at this time.
That's fine, like
Yeah.
I said.
Yeah.
Kyle and I had the discussion, so I said I would talk to you guys and see what your thoughts were. So we'll keep things as is, it sounds like, and we'll go from there.
I think it's important that we do discuss this kind of thing once in a while and just, see if there's sentiment that changes over time. Okay, and the next item was waterfront park.
Oh,
Excuse me, Wasserman Park waterfront issues, and I think we've
done there.
pretty much done that.
So, excuse me.
Brings us, I'm sorry, Michelle?
It's okay. So we're going to skip, obviously, because I think Paul was going to be here, right? So we're just going to just put the discussion on Fraser Square Memorial will just be postponed? Was that?
Oh, he's not on the
that
agenda.
was
That was
from
last month.
Okay, I kept it on
That
for
was
last
June.
month. Oh, that's just me. I forgot to hit delete. I was like, he's coming back again? I thought he had an update. Okay.
Nope, not tonight.
No, and the next item on the agenda was Wasserman Park, the waterfront issues, which we've already done, which brings us to old business, which is happy news.
Yep.
Merrimack Dog Park. Who wants to talk about the dog park?
I guess I will, unless Christine really wants to.
I think Christine really wants to.
Oh, no, well, we'll go to Matt. I mean,
Alright.
we were asked by Paul McCauley to provide some recommendations based upon the current standings, and that we did, and this is going to lead to Matt's news he's going to present.
All right, so just backing up for a second. As you remember, when we originally went out to bid on the dog park, it came in way over. We worked with the dog park committee, made some changes. We didn't change the size of the project, the size of the park. Went back out to the contractors, but with those changes, so pending final approval from the council in September, the dog park is a go for this fall.
That, excuse me, that's wonderful news. Can you just, for the TV audience and for me, since
Yes.
I don't know, give us a hint of what types of changes were made?
I didn't bring that list with me, but surfacing, we went from a 6-foot fence to a 5-foot fence. The gate, the gate didn't change. The big one was the surfacing, and because originally it was all stump grindings, which would be expensive to fill, 3/4 of an acre. The geotextile fabric was taken out.
So we're still going to remove the prickers, but the stumps are staying, and is
basically,
one of the things,
the
yep.
prickers and things will be gone, but the bigger trees and things will all be gone, but like stumps will stay and that kind of thing. So, but it saves us enough money to get us into the budget where we need to be. So Paul McCallie will be coming to the council in September. I'm not sure which meeting yet, but at some point, and once the council gives their blessing to proceed, then we will set up a construction schedule and, go from there. So.
And Christine will chair the groundbreaking
Yes.
celebrations.
We'll bring shovels and puppies and have shovels and pooper scoopers, so we'll be good.
So my question is, all the stumps are staying in the ground?
Not all, no. I mean,
So there
just-
was some they were bearing some stumps, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of them were pulled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, the smaller ones were,
Yeah.
there was the discussion that I forgot what diameter they were talking about, but the smaller ones are going to be pulled. The bigger ones can stay, they'll be used by the dogs and people will sit on and things like that.
But I guess I'm just looking for more of a cleaner look. I'm hoping it's not looking. Are there 30 stumps sticking out? I mean, if you had to give it a rough number, I just wanted.
I don't know.
No?
I don't think there's that many.
Go count them.
Yeah, I'll get my flashlight.
Okay. I'm just the last time I saw it, there was a lot of stumps showing, so I'm hoping there was cleaned up. Okay.
Well, and I think there's a maintenance gate, so if they became a problem, you could go in with a stump grinder
Right. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
later on and get
Yeah.
whatever you need done.
Yeah. Progress. That's right. And I don't know, did you guys have any upcoming fundraisers?
Well, with the summer holidays, people on traveling and things like that, school vacations, there has been a lot for fundraising right now because we're just kind of all pulled in different directions. So I'm sure with the next meeting that we have coming up, we'll schedule some more.
Good. Okay, and anything else on the dog park?
No.
Very good. Director's report.
Okay, I'm going to try and make this quick because we're already over an hour and we'd like to get out of here. It's been a good summer over there. Camp sold out. Nanticoke Day Camp sold out 7 out of the 8 sessions. The only one that didn't was 4th of July week, and that's always lower. But we were averaging 106 campers a week. Going back, just in comparison. So this year we had 843 total registrations versus 803 last year versus 750 2 years ago. So we've gone up basically 100 registrations in 2 years.
Congratulations, Matt.
Well done.
We also offered one of the new one-week theater camps that we talked about, which was in the budget. We had 18 participants spend an entire week just doing theater, and they had a ball. They've already asked me when they can sign up for next year, and we'll probably have a couple of weeks of theater camp next year.
What age group does that service?
The theater camp was 7 to 14. We also had a new half-day preschool summer program this year, which we ended up with 30 participants, ages 3 to 5. Kind of introduction to camp, basically. Games, activities, nature, crafts, that kind of thing. Went pretty well, so that went well as well. The other new program that we had originally proposed was the teen travel camp, which was originally going to be scheduled for next week. Most years I've got staff begging me for hours at the end of the summer, and this year I didn't have it. And for whatever reason, next week was a bad week. Now camp started a week later, so that's part of it. But schools are starting to go back. Most of my teachers, the teachers that work for me, have to be back like Tuesday. So that's part of it too. But we are planning on doing a whole summer of kind of teen travel camps next summer, whole summer long. Concerts have been good this summer. We've been averaging about 120 people a week this year, just down a little bit from last year. Last year was like 150. But we've had a lot of really hot, 90-degree Wednesday nights. We haven't had any rain, but we've had a lot of really hot, muggy nights, so I think that's part of it. But last year, like I said, we averaged 150. 2 years ago, we were averaging about 80, and 4 years ago, we were averaging about 40 a week. So we've come a long way in a couple of years on our concerts, which is nice. Summer movies, we originally had planned, when we started all this, to do one movie this summer, which was going to be in August. And then we were approached by the Lions Club who wanted to sponsor 2 movies for us, so we ended up adding 2 more. Then we got approached by Kiss 108 out of Boston that wanted to sponsor the one that we were already going to do, so then we added 3. And then in mid-July, the police department approached us and said, hey, do you want to co-sponsor our National Night Out event and do so we ended up doing 4 movies this summer. We had...
How was the turnout for those?
In the one in June, we showed Star Wars. We had 90 people there. In July, we had Finding Nemo, and we had 125 people there. The Police National Night Out, we showed Zootopia, and we had over 200. And that was over at Watson Park. And then the last one is actually next Thursday, the 25th. That's going to be at Wasserman Park, which is Minions. And that's the one that's sponsored by Kiss 108 and Whole Foods Market. So they'll have their DJs there. They're giving away prizes. And so come out to Wasserman Park at 7 o'clock on next Thursday, the 25th. So obviously, we want to thank the Lions Club, the Police Department, and Kiss 108 for sponsoring these events. It's made for a long summer, but that's okay, because we like community events.
You won't get arrested for after hours?
It's a scheduled program, so it's okay. Summer repairs, we hit a few We hit a few delays with the sprinkler system in the function hall at Wasserman Park. There was some special parts that had to be specially ordered. They came in, the part didn't work, whatever. That should be wrapped up in the next day or two. But then we should be good to go for rentals in the fall. We haven't pushed it because we wanted to make sure we were set to go before we did. And Michelle, I can give you a write-up of all this in a second because I'm talking fast. We've got two kind of future projects at Wasserman Park that we're looking at now. One, about 3 weeks ago, one of the septic system lines out of the Arts and Crafts building broke. And it led to a septic tank that we didn't know existed. It wasn't listed on any of our maps. And because all our maps over there are hand-drawn. And so we had, got a company out to do emergency repairs, fix the line, whatever. The tank that it was leading to, because we never knew it was there, obviously isn't functioning the way it's supposed to be functioning. So that's the first of our future projects that we're looking at. And I met with, like I said, the Newtown engineer, Dawn, and I'm going to mess up the last name, but Tuomala, on that project. So yes, DAWN. So she's working on that right now. I don't know costs or anything, but obviously it's a septic system, so we have to fix it. So,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Was it the leach field failure or the tank?
The tank.
The tank. Okay.
Yeah, so the tank. That doesn't mean that the leach field might not have a problem too, but we're still working on that one. The other one, as I mentioned earlier, is the water. Looking at trying to improve the waterfront itself. If you go down there, especially right around now, that front section of the H dock is in about 2 inches of water, and it's just mud. We try to muck it out with shovels and things, but that only gets you so far. There's no circulation in there. One of the things we're looking at is possibly looking at pushing the dock out, which would get, if the ramp's coming up from the shore, at least you'd get some water coming in from the side. It might circulate a little more, and that'll improve some of that. Yes.
This is where I want to add my 2 cents. I'm going to be asking for dredging.
Yeah,
it's overdue,
Yeah.
and but it could take a year or even 2, because then you got to ask the Department of Environmental Services for the permits and all that. But in order to make it a more proper swimming area, it really needs to be dredged.
Yes.
And the beach, obviously, when that happens, then the beach will have its improvements with trucked in sand and all that. But
Right.
obviously, I think that is really the next step
Right.
down there.
And that's, again, was part of that same conversation with Dawn.
Yeah.
About dredging and, like you said, the shoreline permit and the wetlands permit. So again, that's on her plate at the moment. So that'll be coming at some point in the future. Last thing I have to update is the fall activities brochure, which I was hoping to have done for tonight's meeting. I've got 2 lines that I need to edit. And I'm waiting for an email on one of the lines of text that I need to edit, and so I didn't quite get them done, but they'll be out tomorrow. So they'll be online, they'll be in our office once I start printing them, then we'll, coming soon. So then they'll be here at Town Hall, the library, O'Leary Center, for hard copies once I start printing those tomorrow.
Michael, you had a question back?
So currently the dock is in an H.
Yes.
When I was at summer camp, we actually did one side with just a middle seam that came out, which actually allowed for a lot more circulation. Is that an option that we can look at? Just taking one side off, because that actually will allow for the waves and everything to kind of help too.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Is it possible on that H just to move the middle piece further out? Is that that won't help? How far down does that go? Does it?
might help with the depth, but it won't help with
The mucking, yeah.
Well, I don't know how much, are they sitting on the bottom? Is that what the
Right
problem
now
is, that
it's-
far out? It's sitting on the bottom and it won't get the circulation?
Pretty close, yeah.
Okay. That's what I was just trying to clarify.
So that's dredging and all that is going to be part of that process as we look at that.
Matt, when I go by the Pennachuck, they have like a bubbler on Manchester Street.
An aerator.
Is that an aerator? Could that work out there to, what?
Well, there's no, is there swimming there?
This one is
No.
it's just a question that the water is no longer deep because of all the runoff. So you've got to walk out 40 feet and you're still up to your hip. So that's the really way to make it flow better is to dredge. Yeah. Which isn't overly costly. It's the time consuming of getting the right permits to do it. Because as everybody could guess, putting a backhoe in water is a no-no unless the state says yes you can. So,
But the water level is very low right now.
and
too.
that
then
makes it
you've
even
got that
worse.
on top
We're at
of
a
everything.
drought season, so yeah, good.
So
nice
it's not
to-
a bad time to do it, too.
Of course, and
Let's do
that's
it.
true too, right?
When it's low.
So we're on that. Okay. Last thing, 3 upcoming events. This coming Saturday, the August 20th, we have a community blood drive, which is going to be over here at the O'Leary Center from 9 to 2. What do you mean, we hope?
The ceilings will be finished.
I'm told they will be.
I know, but close.
Next Wednesday will be the final summer concert of the season. We canceled last week because it looked like it was going to rain, and then it didn't rain, but we canceled anyway. So that's been rescheduled for next week. That's the Transistors from 6 to 8. And then, as I mentioned earlier, next Thursday is the movie night at Wasserman Park at 7 o'clock. And then finally, town is making preparations to mark the 15th anniversary of 9/11, which is a little scary that it's 15 years.
Oh, my God.
I was using it as in a class. I was teaching a class to staff at the beginning of the summer and talking about shock and things. And then I went, wait a minute, you were like 2, 1, you weren't born yet? Oh, getting old. Anyway, so Sunday, September 11th at 7 o'clock, there's going to be a candlelight remembrance ceremony here at Abbey Griffin Park. We're
With the right kind of candle holders.
Yes. We're going to be, press releases will be coming out soon as I have time to write them. But there'll be a banner going up probably next Thursday down at the park, down at Watson Park for just to start getting the word out. So that's coming out on September 11th, and that's the last that I got.
Got to tell you, Matt, your signs and all your paperwork and all your publicity is just amazing. Good job.
Any further questions on Matt's report? I think most as we went along. Mike?
I just have a comment. So this is my first meeting, obviously, here, and I'm pretty impressed by what you do. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we do a lot with not much budget.
Yeah.
If I gotta hear that again.
I just added
But
again, not much budget.
But look at the quorums we get.
Full-time maintenance. That's what I need. Anyway. Let's get out of here.
Organization reports. The Senior Citizens Club. Maureen, what do we got?
Okay, wait a minute, I have entertainment. Wait a minute. All right, Maureen Hall, representative of the seniors. Guess what we did Monday? We had, when you have nothing else to do, you have a silly hat day. No, we had sillier hats than this.
Okay.
Hey, okay. So I shall continue because we got to get out of here. Don't take pictures. You have to pay. You have to, not on anything. They had a great trip. They went on the Mount Washington on Wednesday. They had a wonderful trip. They just complained that it was cloudy. That's all. That was it. Yeah, and Wednesday, September 7th, they're going to Cape Cod Canal. We do have openings, and it's open to the public because we've got like 36 seniors, and I don't know, I think they're afraid they might get seasick or something. And it's by the Fox Tours anyways. And then in October, at Gunquint Playhouse, $1 Million Quartet, that is sold out. It's in Kittery, so that's the end of that. But we are, no more. Foxwood Casino, we're going to have probably November 16th. Other than that, I wish you would come and see. Hopefully the ceiling is being taken down and put up tomorrow and Friday. So, and it's really looking good. So we do have our upcoming fair coming up. And I don't talk about Christmas because last year I got yelled at, so I'm not going to say anything. So, okay, that's the end. Any questions for Maureen? Okay, I'm done.
Awesome job.
Rick said he couldn't be here tonight, so obviously he's not here. He did say that football, cheerleading, soccer, and lacrosse are in operation. And the MYA has renewed their contract with the town for another 3 years. And I think that was about it. Anything else I missed?
I know that my son participated in the 3-on-3 soccer this summer, which was actually fairly successful, I would say, for the first time. I'm not sure if I talked about that, but that was a good event. We're good.
Good. Town council.
I apologize if I was a little strong on the Wasserman Park beach subject to anybody. Right? I just felt like a lot of people have worked awful hard for that park down there. But I won't. I'm going to take every opportunity I can when public television is seeing us to remind all the voters. Come September, we have 3 polling places. I'm actually going to try and book some time on the television, kind of make a public address announcement leading up to a couple weeks before the election as another way of communication. The town's going to be sending out bright yellow postcards reminding of everybody. Again, 3 polling stations. Every election, small or large, it won't matter. It is the brand new polling spot will be the middle school on Babusick Lake Road, the APR at Mastrocola, and then St. John Newman's on 101A. So just St. John Newman 101A. You can kind of guess the southern portion of town will go there. The new middle school and the tried and true APR room at James Mastrocola. So those 3 are going to be permanently in place and ready for September. So.
School district.
I'd just like to add that there is a website. I don't know what it is, but maybe you can share later to check to see where you're supposed to vote. The school board in the school districts is happy to say that the track is almost done. So the pavement is down. It's curing right now. Once the pavement has cured, they'll be able to layer the final track stuff that they put on top. Not sure what it really is, but it's looking really good. I went down there myself earlier this week. Additionally, school will be starting on September 6th, so everybody in the community be ready for the buses and the morning traffic and all that stuff, and be patient as the kids are going to school. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Nice to have you here. Did you have any closing remarks,
I did
Matt?
not. I think I've said enough.
We don't have any comments from the public. They spoke to us earlier. Anybody else have any final committee comments?
All sworn in, and I make the motion that we adjourn. Now that I'm sworn in.
Thank you. Is there a second? A second from Michael. All in favor? We are adjourned. Don't forget to vote on the 13th of September.